Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about journaling and what's the purpose of it and what's the purpose of it for me. I was just thinking about this subject and that I never made a video about it before, but that actually I think journaling really has helped me in my life. So I thought it would be good to share that information on here too. I started journaling in 2017, I believe, so almost 10 years ago. Time kind of goes fast. So I must have been either 18 or 19, depending on which month it was. I think I must have had times before then where I might have journaled, written things down about my life a little bit. But I think this is the point where I started to do it frequently and actually remember that I was really doing it a lot. And actually, I've been doing it on my phone. The thing is, you can, of course, I don't know also the people who are watching if you journal or not. And of course, you can do it in many different ways. You can write it down on paper if that's what works for you. But personally, I've been doing it digitally on my phone because I didn't like the idea or of like the possibility of people finding my journal or diary or however you want to call it and reading it, because I would write down very personal things and not with all the details, but still things that are for me like personal. I know that not everything in your phone is necessarily safe, but it would be like information that would be useless to a stranger, but if they don't know me, right? But would not be something that I want people who know me to read, because it's too personal. So that's why I decided to do it in my phone, but it's still up to everyone, of course, how you like to do it. I love also writing things down physically, because I also as an INFJ, personality type, my inferior function is extroverted sensing, which means I have to use it sometimes, and a way that I like using it is using my hands to just write things down or feel paper like a book or something, and just writing things down instead of typing and having something physical to hold like a book. I do like that. But that's why, for example, I have my calendar planner, like my planner, where I know that a lot of people have that in their phone nowadays. Even even my dad. You know what's funny? My dad is more like digital than me in that sense. Not in every sense, but in that sense, yes, because he has his planner in his phone and I don't. I have still a physical planner on paper because I can't get rid of it. I just like having it physical. I actually have it here, like a book thing. It's not like I never do it, but I do my journal like in my phone because I can put a password on it that if anyone who was in my phone can't open it, of course I lock my phone too. So it's not like someone who knows me can just randomly grab it and if they find it and read it, it's a bit more, for me it feels safer, I guess. But one tip I want to give, if you are thinking about journaling, but you don't want to write down very personal things because you're afraid that people are going to read it, one tip I will give, what I have learned to do, is that I do write down very personal things that I'm dealing with because I notice it really helps to work through them. But what I do is, if I'm talking about people, I don't write names, certainly not full names. I write the first letter of the name or like a code name or something like that. If you're talking about something that you're really embarrassed about or you don't want people to know about, use a code word, just use a word that only you know what it means, so that only you would know, because you're the only one reading it, so you can use any code words that you want, you don't have to be literal at all. Keep things vague, as long as you understand what it means, it's fine. It doesn't have to be specific. and delete things every now and then or throw it in the trash if you do it physically. Don't keep like a huge journal of your thoughts. I mean, that's what I would recommend if you don't want other people reading it. Don't keep a huge long journal of all your thoughts, because then if someone finds it, it's gonna be worse, you know, because they know they can read everything. And usually if you are in one chapter of your life and you're dealing with stuff that you want to reflect on, and that's usually like a chapter in your life that might last a few months maybe, but usually after that you're dealing with different things, and maybe you want to write down a few major life lessons or whatever, but you don't want to write down too much, because if you write down too much, first of all, what's the point? Because you're not gonna have time to read all of it again if it's so much. You wanna like dial it down to small lessons maybe that you wanna remember. And if you have some kind of problem that you solved over time, or some kind of chapter in your life with certain worries that is closed now and solved, or you don't really think that much about it anymore, or everything has just changed, you know, then of course just delete it or throw it in the trash or burn it or whatever, you know, because it's more comforting to know that if you write down very personal things that you're dealing with, that it's not that much. And it also keeps things more clear for yourself, for your mind, more, it gives you a better overview, you know, of what you write down. So yeah, that's the tips I would give for that. So I started in 2017. I think I was definitely having a lot of anxiety problems back then. I was trying to figure out a solution for my anxiety problems. Before this time, whenever I had a problem, something that I was worried about, something that I was struggling with, I would just keep it in my head, you know? I would try to figure it out in my mind over time. And I would tell myself, like, I can do it because I remember, you know, I remember what's going on with me. Of course I remember, right? But when I started journaling, the main benefit that I notice of it is that, yes, it might feel uncomfortable to write your personal thoughts down, because if it's just in your head, no one can, like, possibly read it, right? That might feel safer, but the benefit of it, even if you just write it down temporarily or really vague or whatever, is that you have it somewhere and you can write it down, and later you can come back to it and you can just let it go, like let it go completely for a moment. You don't have to remember, like you're not forcing yourself to remember. And that for me was kind of stressful when I told myself that if I had a problem and I was thinking of kind of starting to think of maybe a solution, that I had to remember my plan, or of what I was gonna do, what I thought the solution was. Either that or the problem would just keep popping up in my mind, you know? And it can make you a bit anxious when you feel like, but what if I forget? Like, you can tell yourself you're not gonna forget, but let's be real, if you're just focused on other things all the time, you might forget. And it's kind of stressful if you have problems and you're trying to solve them and you keep forgetting where you're at with them, or you have kind of like worries about things and it keeps circling in your mind because you hadn't found a solution yet and you feel like you need to figure it out. So what helped me was writing things down, like, for example, okay, I have problems with anxiety. I think that this might be a solution. I write down how I'm feeling, what I did, maybe to try and make it go away, what I think is a good solution for now. And then I just move on with my life and I don't think about it for a while. Of course, sometimes you might still think about it by accident or whatever, but I don't feel like I need to remember anything because I know I wrote it down. I can always look back to it. I don't need to remember anything. And I can fully like focus on what I'm doing right now, can be in the moment without these worries on my mind too much, because I already thought about them and I already wrote it down, and I can't do much more. So I give myself permission to kind of try to focus on other things right now and to let it leave my mind for a moment, right? That's for me definitely one of the biggest benefits of journaling. I also think it has made me more self-aware, because when you don't journal and you start thinking about yourself, your life, your struggles, it can often start becoming kind of stressful, and you forget about things. Like, let's be real, you forget about conclusions you've thought of, solutions you've thought of. There's just no clarity, Sometimes it's like my mind would just be kind of like a mess. But when I write things down, there's so much more clarity. It's like, this is what I went through last month, for example. This is what I'm going through this month. This is what I'm learning about myself. This is how I'm feeling, or how I have been feeling. And maybe I write down some goals or things that I want to change about myself or do or whatever. But it gives me so much more clarity about who I was, who I am now, and where I'm going, what my goals are, without forgetting, without the mess in my head. I do want to say that as I am an INFJ, maybe this is a good thing in general for INFJs, because our mind is generally kind of messy, because we have introvert intuition, and it's a function that deals with a lot of information at the same time. It's kind of a chaotic function that goes from information to insight, and kind of goes all over the place to what's most interesting in that moment. And it's not a very organized function. And yes, we try to organize things more outside of ourselves with our extroverted feeling function. But then the question is like, yes, I do have introverted thinking in my mind, but it can't do much because it's our third function, so it's not that strong. So usually my thoughts are very scattered. So how do we organize our minds, right? Like, we can organize our outside the world, but how do we organize our mind? And I feel like maybe for us, that's also why it's useful to write our thoughts down sometimes, to make it more organized, Not saying that a P-type couldn't do this, like, anyone can do this if this feels useful to them, but I think especially as an INFJ, it has been useful also for me. Also has been useful for me as an INFJ because I'm always trying to grow, and it really annoys me when I'm feeling stuck with anything, when I'm feeling like I have no purpose or I don't know what my future is anymore. I'm always looking to grow in some area of my life. I'm always trying to work towards some kind of goal. And if I feel stuck in some way, either with, I don't know, feeling depressed or not knowing what my purpose is, or encountering a problem in my life and not knowing how to solve it, like, I'm not the type of person who can just like be in the moment and just live and accept, I also realized lately that I struggle a lot with acceptance. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? I don't know. Because I do think our goal-oriented nature is not necessarily a bad thing. I think we just all need balance, And sometimes I forget the balance, to find the balance, where I become too much of a control freak and I can't accept things for how they are, Because I'm so goal-oriented and I get annoyed when things aren't the way that I want them to be. It makes me feel a lot more at peace when I take some time sometimes for myself to figure things out, to figure out how to get to the goal. And journaling really helps me with the reflection on my goals and making a plan, and also reflection on me, who I am. Because as an INFJ, I don't have introverted feeling. This might not necessarily resonate for every INFJ, but I'm a 4. I'm sure a lot of INFJs are also like Enneagram type 4s. I'm not gonna go into that in depth right now, But in short, what it means is that I care a lot about my identity, but since I don't have the function introvert feeling, my identity can sometimes be a bit confusing to me. But I need to know who I am, because that's what a 4 wants. And as a feeler and an introvert, it's not weird to want to know who you are, to have this need for clear identity, because I have a lot of my own feelings about things, and I have a lot of personal views on the world with my introverted intuition. But yeah, I especially need to know who I am, and sometimes because I don't have introverted feeling but extroverted feeling, that means that my feelings are a lot processed outside of myself, so I feel a lot while I am doing things, but when I'm thinking and in my head, I'm analyzing a lot, and sometimes my feelings are not that clear. And like I said, my head is really messy, which means sometimes I don't know for sure who I am anymore, and I need to know. So because of that need, it really helps me to be able to write down these things, like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. What does that mean? You know, what does that mean about who I am right now? So yeah, it's good for peace of mind, self-reflection, self-awareness, goal setting, making plans, mental clarity, and that's why I journal. I hope everyone is doing okay. I hope you have a nice day. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.